Boris Johnson has condemned a Mail on Sunday article that claimed Labour's Deputy Leader Angela Rayner tried to distract him in the House of Commons by crossing and uncrossing her legs.
The story has sparked a heated debate about sexism in Parliament. It is not, though, the first time that such allegations and similar have been at the forefront of the conversation. Amongst our leaders, Carolina Haranskar has more.
The number of women in Parliament is at an all-time high, but it doesn't mean that they're always represented fairly. Jackie Smith and Theresa May were criticised by papers for these clothing choices, or as one bluntly stated, the amount of cleavage on show. And Alison McGovern's outfit in a debate was labelled attention-seeking. In 2017, the then Prime Minister Theresa May and Nicola Sturgeon made a front page next to the headline, "Never mind Brexit, who won Legsit," for simply posting a photo whilst wearing tights. And during PMQs, David Cameron was accused of sexism when he told Shadow Treasury Secretary Angela Eagle to calm down, dear.
Calm down, dear. Calm down. Calm down.
Senior Labour MP Harriet Harman has called for a change to the Commons rules to make misogynistic, homophobic and racist briefings a breach of the MP's Code of Conduct. And she joins us now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, that's interesting, that you're talking about the briefings, because this story came from an anonymous source, a backbencher, who said it. You want to make that a breach of the rules?
I mean, as you say, what's happened is a Tory MP has said to a journalist anonymously that what Angela Rayner has done has been effectively flashing during Prime Minister's question time, which is a total lie, and it's misogynist. And, you know, it just should not happen. Imagine if you had some big sort of household brand like Marks and Spencer's or something, where you had a senior executive briefing anonymously to a newspaper that another senior executive was doing that. They'd say, what on earth is going on here? I mean, it sort of brings shame on the House of Commons. It's an embarrassment at the very least. You know, we've got all these issues to be dealing with, you know, the cost of living crisis, Ukraine, the health service that you've just been discussing, and yet what this is, of course, is it's a way of undermining senior women in politics. And it is the universal experience of younger women MPs that they get this all the time. Not all the men are doing it, but all the women are suffering from it. And, you know, you can't win because you're either too glamorous or you're too frumpy. And actually, they should just get over it and respect the fact these women are elected and they've got a job to do. And they've just picked on the wrong woman with Angela Rayner because she's standing up against it and we're all rallying behind her.
Well, do you know what, Harriet Harman? I think that if they'd done it about any woman in Parliament, we should rally about it. I just think it's an unacceptable thing to say. I mean, we were just discussing when you came in. I see it as a form of upskirting because talking about a woman in that way, that's the image that you're putting into people's minds. You know, it's the comparison with Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. In fact, that's even a scene that Sharon Stone now finds very uncomfortable talking about.
I mean, it is really seriously creepy, but I think that over the years, all of us who've been subjected to this have kind of just kept our heads down and thought, I'm just going to try and ignore it and get on with it. And what's good about what Angela's done is she said, actually, I'm not going to put up with it, and none of the women in the House of Commons should have to put up with it, and not just the Labour women, but the Conservative women as well are saying we're not going to put up with it. But from Boris Johnson, it's good he's condemned it, but the thing about Prime Minister is that you should be doing things as well as saying things, and I think you should be finding out who this MP is and actually not just giving them a slap over the wrist, but actually taking the whip away from them, because you know, our democracy is better than that. And the idea that that's the sort of thing that goes on.
Good journalists never reveal their sources.
And of course, it's anonymous, isn't it? I mean,
he could find out when they have a leak, like from the civil service. They've got a very standard way. They say, "You're under suspicion. We want to see your diary, who you met. We want to look at your phone, who you've been texting." And they find out who's done it. It's not rocket science. They could easily do that and then make an example of them, and everybody will soon get the idea. And also, we should change the MP's Code of Conduct. At the moment, the MP is officially, by putting this story in the papers, has done nothing wrong. So we need to change the rules to say, if you brief a journalist, whether anonymously or on the record, if it's misogynist, it's sexist, it's racist or it's homophobic, you can't do that to a colleague and that's a breach of the rules. You've got to do your job, not try and undermine people.
Does it surprise you that the editor of the paper decided to publish it?
Well, I think there was a story there. The story is malicious, salacious, creepy briefing by a Conservative MP about senior, effective Labour woman. That's what the story was, not an opportunity to put, you know, pictures like that. And, you know, Angela is very, very tough, but it does... Why should women MPs live in a state of eternal vigilance of what am I wearing? And those pictures you just showed, those cleavage pictures, the reason why they're like that is because the cameras are up in the gallery. If you looked at them straight on, you wouldn't see the cleavage. But anyway, even if they are choosing to wear something that shows their cleavage, the men can just get over it. You know, they just need to calm down, dare I say it.
Feels like a return to the kind of thing which would have been said about Nancy Astor when she first came into Parliament, that somehow she's not good enough to debate with the men, so she has to use her sexuality. But you've been in Parliament for 40 years now. I mean, didn't you think over these 40 years we would get beyond that?
Well, I think that, you know, in the past, when there was just a handful of women MPs, the misogynist men didn't need to feel worried about them, and also we just kept our heads down. But actually, now that there's a growing number of women MPs and they're more assertive, there are some men who find that very threatening, and this is the backlash against that progress. But actually, we're going to, you know, stand up to the backlash, and they will lose, but it's just embarrassing and wrong.
What signal does it send to young women thinking about a career in politics? What would you say to young women who look at this and think, would I want to be treated in this way in the newspapers?
I don't really agree with the line of argument that it puts off women coming into politics. For every woman who thinks, oh, I think that's awful, I wouldn't want to be in that situation, there are 10 more who think, I want to get in there and kick their backside and change things. And actually, there will be more women coming in and they will change things, but we've got to deal with this rump of this Neanderthals and let Angela and all the other women MPs do the important job they've got to do.
Do you wish you'd kick backsides harder during your career?
Oh, absolutely, but you can only do it if there's more than one or two of you, because, you know, when you're really on the margins. But now there is a monstrous regiment of women and the men are just going to have to, you know, get a grip.
Let me just look at this from a different perspective, which is that the Speaker has called in the editor of the Mail on Sunday. Now, you might not like the story. I don't like the story. I agree that it could have been reported in a completely different way. Exactly. I'm surprised by it. I don't like it. I don't like the image that it puts in people's heads, and I don't think Angela Rayner should have put up with that. But like any journalist, I'm going to be concerned where somebody, like the Speaker of the House of Commons, calls in another journalist and says, you need to change your coverage. Is that the right way to approach it?
Well, I think, as I say, I think there was a story, but the story is a different one from the one they reported. But I think that in terms of the press lobby is also very male-dominated. This is the press gallery. This is the journalists who don't just watch watch Parliament on TV and report it. They come into the House of Commons and they sit in the gallery and they mingle with MPs as we go about our business. So it's like an invitation into the House of Commons. And I think I think the Speaker will tread very carefully on this, because he will not want to trample on press freedom. No. But I've actually argued that we shouldn't have a male-dominated press lobby. There are a lot of brilliant women journalists who've not yet had a proper chance, and I think we should have 50-50 passes in the lobby for men and women, not say who those women are or who those men are in the lobby.
Does it matter if it's men or women reporting? There's plenty of men who are, you know, who report very fairly. You know, I mean, Glenn Owen, the political editor, is a reporter who would normally, you know, report very fairly about...
But men who have daughters who know this is not the way they should be treated.
But if it's a boys' club and it's male-dominated, and also it can hardly be a meritocracy unless you actually think the men are so much better than the women. We don't think the men are so much better than the women. We just think that many women journalists are excluded. And if we said to the newspapers, choose who you want for the press lobby, it's your choice who you have reporting on it. But by the way, half of those people you choose have got to be women. They would find brilliant women, and then it would not be an issue.
Harriet, your work is not done. Why are you standing down? I mean, don't you need to keep going?
Well, my work is done. The job is not done, but there is some absolute brilliant women on all sides who are going to take this forward, because women in the country expect to be treated as equal citizens and, you know, play their part in you know, their country.
You once temporarily were leader, Labour Party.
Twice, temporarily.
Twice,
yeah.
but only temporarily. Why does the Labour Party have a problem with having a female leader?
Well, it is embarrassing. The only justification I have, of course, the Tories have had 2 women prime ministers, not just women leaders, but women prime ministers. And we haven't even had a, you know, fully elected women leader, is that basically the women in the Labour Party, I think, are more troublesome to the men. We're more subversive, so we're kind of less popular within our own party. Whether that is a completely bogus explanation, I don't know, but it's my only justification for what is embarrassing.
If the Mail on Sunday might say Labour Party needs to get its own house in order.
We certainly do.
But you beat 4 men to become deputy leader, so, you know, you've paved the way.
Yeah, deputy, but we're talking about,
yeah, exactly.
you know...
It's 2022.
Next one.
Next time we can have a male deputy supporting a woman leader.
Harriet Harman, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.